Imagine standing in front of your family, your friends, your entire community, and realizing the two people you trusted most had plotted your humiliation. The moment Sloane pressed the ivory envelope into my palm, she leaned close enough for me to feel her perfume and whispered, "Don't lose your vows, Delaney. You'll need them." Her smile was soft, almost sisterly, but her eyes carried something sharper, smug, triumphant. To the guests, it looked like comfort. To me, it was a knife. I slid the envelope under my bouquet and forced a smile back. "Thank you," I whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. My voice didn't tremble. If anything, it purred. Logan caught my glance from the altar, dimples flashing, shoulders relaxed. "Ready, sweetheart," he called softly, voice carrying across the hush of the courtyard. I let the corners of my mouth lift. "If only you knew." The officiant raised his hands. "We're gathered here today. Wait." My voice cut through the air. The string quartet stumbled to silence. Every guest froze, their programs halfway lifted, their smiles stuck mid-breath. Logan frowned, still trying to play the doting groom. "What's wrong?" he whispered, tugging at my hand. "Cold feet? Hey, it's okay." I turned to him, my expression cool. "Do I look nervous to you?" Whispers rippled through the rows of guests. My mother shifted in her chair. My father's jaw tightened. Somewhere in the back, someone muttered, "Oh no." Sloane stepped closer, her bouquet trembling in her hand. "Delaney," she whispered quickly through clenched teeth. "Don't do this. Just read what I gave you. Please." I tilted my head and studied her face. "You really think I didn't already know?" Her lips parted, the blood draining from her cheeks. That crack in her mask was the sweetest thing I'd seen all day. Logan's smile vanished. "Delaney," he hissed under his breath. "What are you talking about?" I laughed once, short and sharp, and held the envelope aloft. "This," I said loudly enough for the rows to hear, "is what my best friend thought I should read before saying my vows." Gasps. Shuffling. My grandmother's hand flew to her mouth. Sloane shook her head violently. "Don't. Delaney, I was only what?" I snapped, cutting her off. "Only screwing my fiancé behind my back? Only planning to humiliate me at my own wedding?" The words cracked through the courtyard like thunder. Guests gasped, recoiled, craned their necks to see. Logan's mother half rose from her chair, stammering, "This can't be true." Logan lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. His voice was low, desperate. "Delaney, stop this right now. Don't embarrass yourself. Whatever you think you saw." I yanked my hand free and stared him dead in the eye. "Embarrass myself?" I let out a laugh that scraped the air. "No, Logan. You're the one about to be embarrassed." The officiant looked horrified, caught between duty and disaster. "Ms. Morgan, perhaps we should—" "No." My voice sliced him off clean. I turned back to the crowd, the entire sea of eyes that had come here expecting a wedding. "Everyone deserves to know the truth before I say a single vow." Sloane shook her head, whispering frantically, "Delaney, please don't." I took a step closer to her, so close that only she and Logan could hear the words. "Did you really think I'd walk into this day blind? That I wouldn't notice the late-night messages? The stolen touches? The receipts you both forgot to hide?" Logan's face went pale, the sweat on his temple glistening in the sunlight. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off before he could breathe another excuse. "Save it." I looked at him, then her, my so-called best friend, the perfect groom. Two liars standing in the open desert sun, moments away from collapse. I raised the envelope higher, turning back to the crowd. "This," I said, my voice steady and cold, "isn't a wedding. It's an execution." Gasps tore through the courtyard. Someone dropped their program. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." Logan reached for me again. "Delaney, don't you dare." But I stepped back, lifting my bouquet just enough to feel the second envelope tucked beneath the ribbon. My envelope. My proof. The evidence that would tear their entire performance apart in front of every last witness. I let the silence thicken, every breath hanging in the heat. Then I looked straight at them, my fiancé, my best friend, and whispered words only they could hear. You've already lost. People always tell you to soak in your engagement, that the months leading up to a wedding will be the sweetest of your life. And in some ways, they were. Scottsdale in spring has this strange magic about it. The desert blooms just enough to trick you into believing it's soft, even though the sun will burn you raw if you stay out too long. I remember those mornings. Waking up in the condo Logan and I had picked together, grinding coffee beans while he read the business section out loud like he was auditioning for the role of responsible husband. Delaney, he'd say, tapping the page. Look at this developer's numbers. If we're smart, we can flip a property like that in 5 years. I'd roll my eyes, half listening, half studying my emails for the charity board. We haven't even bought our first house yet, and you're already plotting the second. He'd grin, dimples sharp, eyes alight with ambition. That's why you need me. I think big picture. It was charming in a way, or maybe I just wanted it to be. Sloane was always in and out of that condo too, breezing through like a second heartbeat in my life. She'd sit on the counter, sipping my coffee, teasing Logan about his 5-year plan obsession. You two are disgustingly perfect. She'd laugh, legs swinging, phone buzzing in her lap. I hope I find what you guys have. At the time, I believed her. I believed both of them. My days were full but steady. Work with the foundation, meetings with vendors, dinners with Logan where we'd talk about honeymoon spots. Italy, maybe Greece. Sloane would come along for cake tastings, helping me choose florals, picking up fabric swatches and turning them in the light. We were a trio that looked unbreakable. People would say, Delaney, you're so lucky to have both a man like him and a friend like her. And I would smile, genuinely believing it, because back then, my world felt like it was expanding, not collapsing. I had dreams. A house in Paradise Valley, Sunday dinners, maybe a baby in a couple of years. I'd look at Logan and imagine him coaching Little League, or at Sloane and picture her as Auntie Sloane, spoiling my kids. It all seemed inevitable, written into the future before it even happened. But if I'm honest, there were cracks. Tiny ones. Logan had this way of correcting me in public, just softly enough that others would think it was endearing. You mean rosé, babe, not blush, he'd say at a tasting. Or, Delaney gets her dates mixed up sometimes. I'd laugh it off. He keeps me straight. That's what I'd tell people. But deep down, it stung. Sloane, too. She had her edges. Sometimes when I was choosing between 2 dresses or 2 centerpieces, she'd smirk and say, Honestly, it doesn't matter what you pick. Logan's going to steal the show anyway. It was a joke. Just a joke. But I'd feel that little twist in my stomach when she said it, like she knew something I didn't. Still, the rhythm of our lives was smooth. Bridal showers, engagement parties, dinners with both families. Logan was attentive. Sloane was supportive. And I was happy. Or at least I thought I was. The ordinary world has a way of blinding you, making you believe comfort is truth. I remember one night especially. Logan and I were out at dinner with his colleagues. Everyone was drinking a little too much. The Scottsdale Steakhouse buzzing with laughter and polished silverware. I excused myself to the restroom, and when I came back, I saw it. Just a flicker. Sloane's hand, resting on Logan's arm, lingering longer than a friend's should. His glance toward her, quick but loaded. Then both of them pulling away as if nothing happened when they noticed me approaching. Everything okay? I asked, sliding back into my seat. Sloane laughed too quickly. Of course. We were just talking about how lucky you are, Delaney. Logan nodded, smiling, eyes steady on me. Yeah, lucky. I smiled back, but something in me shifted. Just slightly. Like a tiny crack had been struck into glass that would one day shatter. From that night on, I started noticing little things. The way Logan sometimes slipped outside to take a call when Sloane was already gone. The way her texts buzzed my phone late at night with excuses about needing advice for a date that somehow always circled back to Logan. The way they both seemed just a little too careful when I walked into the room. But I told myself I was overthinking. That's what people in love do, right? They rationalize. They explain away the red flags until the flag turns into a fire. I didn't want to believe my best friend and my fiancé could betray me. Not them. Not us. Looking back, I see it so clearly now. The ordinary world wasn't ordinary at all. It was already tilting, already cracking under the weight of their lies. But at the time, I clung to the dream. The desert house, the children, the dinners. I held on because it was easier to believe in the life I'd built than in the truth clawing to get out. And if I had to pick the moment, the exact second when the end really began, it was that night in the steakhouse, when I caught that fleeting look between them. I didn't know it then, but that was the first time I saw the truth, the first red flag, the beginning of the end. It started with a phone. Not mine. His. Logan had left it on the kitchen counter one night, charging. He was in the shower, whistling. I wasn't snooping. I had no reason to. At least, that's what I told myself. But when the screen lit up with a notification, I glanced. A text, from a name that should have brought comfort. Sloan. Same time tomorrow? Same room? My chest went tight. My first instinct was denial. It can't be what it looks like. I told myself maybe it was a client joke, some inside thing I didn't get. But then another bubble appeared. God, I can't wait to have you again. She's so blind. The world blurred. My stomach dropped so hard I gripped the counter to keep from falling. When Logan walked back in, towel slung around his hips, he saw my face. What's wrong? I forced a smile, my heart slamming against my ribs. Nothing. Just tired. He kissed my forehead, water dripping onto my skin, and walked past me like nothing had happened. And maybe in his mind, nothing had. But in mine, everything had. I didn't confront him right away. Rage wants release, but suspicion wants proof. Proof is quieter, meaner. So I waited. And I watched. I noticed how often Sloane's name appeared on his phone now, always muted, never with previews. I noticed how she suddenly had client dinners the same nights he had late meetings. I noticed the faint perfume on his shirt when he came home, and how it wasn't mine. The cracks widened. One afternoon, Sloane came over to help with invitations. She was glowing, radiant in a way she shouldn't have been. Logan called halfway through, voice warm in a way that wasn't meant for me. She silenced his name on her screen with one tap of her finger and smiled at me. Sorry, wrong number. I almost believed her. Almost. The night it became undeniable, I was driving back from a late board event. Their cars were both there, parked outside the boutique hotel on Camelback. I sat across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned bone white. For 30 minutes, I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe she was meeting a date. Maybe he was meeting a client. Maybe I was insane. But then I saw them. Together. Walking out the glass doors, hair mussed, clothes slightly wrinkled, his hand brushing the small of her back like it had brushed mine 100 times. And they laughed. Laughed. As though the world was theirs. As though I didn't exist. My vision tunneled. I wanted to throw the car into drive and mow them down right there in the parking lot. But instead, I sat frozen, forcing every muscle in my body to memorize what I saw. The way his hand lingered. The way she leaned into him. That was the night I understood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This was routine. Planned. Rehearsed. Calculated. The grief came first. That night, I lay on the bathroom floor, dress still on, mascara staining the tile as I sobbed until my ribs ached. I thought about every Sunday morning coffee, every whispered forever, every secret shared between Sloane and me since high school, my fiancé, my best friend, the two people I trusted most, and then the grief curdled into rage. I remembered the steakhouse dinner, the touch on his arm, the way she told me, "Logan's going to steal the show anyway." The way he corrected me in public, smug, as though I were already beneath him. They weren't slips, they were signs, and I had ignored them. The rage sharpened everything. I began collecting, quietly, secretly, every text, every receipt, every unexplained absence. I saved screenshots to a hidden drive, photographed receipts left in his pockets, wrote down license plates when I saw her car outside his office. I became my own detective, my own judge, my own jury. The deeper I dug, the darker it got. He had paid for their hotel rooms with his corporate card. Bold, arrogant. She had used my credit card points for a girls' trip that was anything but. Together, they laughed at me in messages, mocking my routines, my trust, my stupid little dreams. That was the worst part. Not just the sex, not just the lies, the ridicule. Reading my so-called best friend type, "She's so clueless." Honestly, I almost feel sorry for her. And his reply, "Don't. She's lucky she even has me at all." My body shook as I scrolled, but my mind sharpened into ice. Because in that moment, I knew. They weren't just betraying me. They were mocking me. They wanted me weak, small, humiliated. They thought I'd never fight back. The final straw came the week before the wedding. Sloane came over to help with my dress fitting. She circled me slowly, tugging fabric, pinning seams. She smiled at me in the mirror, her reflection a twisted ghost of the friend I once adored. "You're beautiful," she said softly. "Logan's going to lose his mind when he sees you." I met her gaze in the mirror. For the first time, I let my smile fade. "You think so?" Her eyes flickered. Just a second. Just enough. I knew then she was waiting for me to break. Waiting for me to stumble, to cry, to collapse under the weight of what she thought she'd reveal at the altar. And that's when it hit me. If betrayal is calculated, then so is revenge. They thought they were orchestrating my humiliation. But what they didn't know was that I had already decided. I wouldn't confront them in private. I wouldn't give them the dignity of shadows. No, their betrayal had been built in daylight, and daylight is where I would end it. Right there, in front of every friend, every family member, every colleague who thought they knew us. I wouldn't walk away quietly. I wouldn't just survive. I would burn their empire down in the very place they tried to crown themselves king and queen. And as I pinned that last piece of fabric in place, watching Sloane's reflection smile at her own lies, I whispered to myself so softly only I could hear, "The wedding isn't for love anymore. It's for war." Grief has a sound. It's the muffled sob into a pillow, the ragged inhale when your body runs out of air, the hiss of mascara-stained water spiraling down a drain. But revenge is silent. It was the morning after I caught them at the hotel. My eyes were raw, my head heavy. The kitchen still smelled of burnt toast from the breakfast Logan had surprised me with, acting like nothing was wrong. He kissed my cheek before heading to work, leaving me with the taste of betrayal on my skin. "Big week ahead," he said, grabbing his keys. "I'll be home late. Meetings. Meetings. Always meetings." I smiled, nodded, and waved. And in that moment, I decided, no more tears. If they could calculate betrayal, I could calculate destruction. At first, the idea of revenge felt too heavy to carry. I almost gave in to the easier path, canceling the wedding, walking away, licking my wounds in private. That's what they expected. That's what most people would do. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text from Sloane. "She's so blind." And his reply, "She's lucky she even has me." No, there would be no quiet ending. I would not be their victim. I would be their judge. The first test came 2 days later when Sloane stopped by unannounced. She carried coffee for both of us, her smile sugary sweet, her voice pitched high like nothing was wrong. "Dress fitting on Thursday," she chirped, setting the cup in front of me. "Can't believe we're this close." Excited? I looked at her, really looked at her. At the perfectly glossed lips, the practiced tilt of her head, the way she over-enunciated words like she was on stage. "Yes," I said simply, wrapping my hands around the cup. "So excited." Her smile deepened, satisfied. She thought she'd fooled me. She thought she was still in control. That was the moment I realized their greatest weakness wasn't lust or arrogance. It was certainty. They believed they'd already won. Logan showed the same cracks. That Friday, we went to dinner with his co-workers. He rested his hand on my knee under the table, all attentive affection. But every time his phone buzzed, his thumb twitched toward it like an addict. "You worry too much," he whispered when I teased him about being glued to his screen. "You know you're the only woman I want." I smiled sweetly and sipped my wine. Of course. And in my mind, I was already planning how to make sure those very co-workers would one day see the truth he tried to bury. By the end of the week, the decision wasn't a question anymore. It was a fire that burned steady, controlled, unstoppable. I began rehearsing. Not the vows, but the reveal. I practiced in front of mirrors, learning how to keep my voice calm when the rage inside me screamed. I practiced my smile, not trembling, not broken, but sharp, surgical. I practiced silence too, because silence unnerves people more than shouting ever could. And every time I rehearsed, I saw their faces. Logan, smug and oblivious. Sloane, condescending behind her best friend act. I pictured the exact moment their certainty would shatter. The funny thing about planning a wedding is that everyone assumes your lists and binders are filled with details about florals, caterers, and playlists. Mine were. But tucked between those pages, hidden under color swatches and guest counts, were other lists. Passwords I'd discovered. Dates and times of their hotel stays. Screen grabs of messages printed in crisp black ink. Bank statements showing every dollar siphoned into their little escapades. Evidence. Enough to slice through any denial. Enough to burn them both to ash. The closer we got to the wedding, the more reckless they became. Logan whispered, "Late nights." Sloane rolled her eyes about endless client meetings. They looked at me with pity, as though I were too fragile, too blind to see what was right in front of me. One night, while I pretended to sleep, I heard Logan in the next room, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, intimate. "She has no clue. Just a few more days and then..." And then. He didn't finish the sentence, but I didn't need him to. I lay in the dark, my fists tight around the sheets, and I smiled. Because if he thought he was leading me to a trap, he didn't realize he was already standing in mine. The turning point came quietly. No fireworks, no shouting. Just me in my bedroom, veil draped over the chair, laptop open with their lies spread across the screen. I studied their words, their laughter at my expense, their certainty. And then I wrote down one sentence in my wedding binder, right where anyone else would jot down flowers or music. "This day won't unite us. It will end them." From then on, I played the part of the glowing bride, smiling at showers, laughing with bridesmaids, kissing Logan in front of cameras. I let Sloane help me pick shoes, let her zip me into dresses, let her lean close and whisper, "You're the luckiest woman alive." And every time she said it, I bit back a laugh, because the truth was mine now. The power was mine. They thought I was blind. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd walk down that aisle in ignorance. What they didn't know was that I'd already made the decision. I wouldn't just expose them. I'd do it where it hurt the most. I'd do it at the altar, in the desert sun, in front of everyone they had ever wanted to impress. And by the time they realized it, it would be too late. The last night before the wedding, I stood on the balcony of my condo, watching the city lights shimmer across the desert. The air was warm, still, almost mocking in its beauty. Behind me, my dress hung spotless, waiting. My bouquet lay on the counter, ribbons ready to conceal more than flowers. I whispered into the night, not to the stars, not to God, but to myself. They won't see it coming. And in that stillness, with the whole city asleep and my future about to be rewritten, I felt it. The thrill of certainty. The bride they thought they were marrying was gone. The woman walking down that aisle was something else entirely. They thought I was planning a wedding, and I was. Just not the kind they expected. The beauty of it was how invisible everything became once I buried it under the chaos of centerpieces, catering tastings, and seating charts. No one questions a bride with lists. No one asks why she's printing at midnight, why she has binders stuffed with papers, why her laptop hums long after everyone else has gone to bed. Everyone assumed it was flowers and menus, but in truth, I was sharpening my knife. The first thing I did was gather everything. Screenshots weren't enough. I needed proof that could survive denial, proof that even Logan's smooth tongue couldn't explain away. I printed messages, bank records, hotel receipts. Each page slid into a white folder with my initials embossed in gold. It looked like something you'd keep vows in. But the vows inside were lies captured in ink. And then there were the photographs I dug from his cloud backup, her lipstick on his cheek, his hand on her thigh. At first, they made me nauseous. But as I arranged them in perfect order, they started to feel like weapons. Next, I had to control the stage. At a final walkthrough, I asked the wedding coordinator about a projector for a surprise slideshow. She clapped her hands, thrilled at my sentimentality. No one questioned it. The AV tech helped me plug in a drive. He didn't even glance at the files. Childhood photos? Engagement shoots? No. What waited on that drive were the moments they thought were hidden, ready to flicker across the screen in front of 100 stunned faces. I smiled as I thanked him, my heart cold and steady. Then came the legal safety net. Logan thought he was clever slipping a prenup into our engagement process, a document designed to protect his supposed interests. What he didn't realize was how thoroughly my lawyer rewrote it with my guidance. One clause, proof of infidelity before the marriage was consummated, meant he'd walk away with nothing. Not a dollar, not a claim to my family's assets. He signed it grinning, thinking it was for him. In reality, it was the noose he tied around his own neck. Of course, with planning this elaborate, there were close calls. One night he came home early and I was at the desk, papers spread everywhere. My pulse nearly snapped out of my throat, but I didn't flinch. I slid a stack of blank budget worksheets over the evidence and smiled. Just crunching numbers, I said. You wouldn't believe how fast this all adds up. He kissed the top of my head, proud. Good thing you're the detail queen. I'd be lost without you. I almost laughed in his face. Sloane was trickier. She had sharper instincts. During a fitting, she caught me staring at her too long in the mirror. What? She asked, pinning fabric at my waist. Why are you looking at me like that? I forced a chuckle. Just thinking this color might wash you out a little. She smirked, smug as ever. Don't start second-guessing me now. You'd be lost without me. The words almost made me snap, but I swallowed it, smiled, and let her think she'd won. Not yet. The closer the day came, the more reckless they grew. Logan's phone buzzed constantly with muted notifications. Sloane dropped by with bottles of wine and fabricated stories about imaginary men she was dating. At the rehearsal dinner, I caught them exchanging one of those quick glances. Smug, knowing, almost pitying me. That pity became my fuel. Every glance they shared, every secret smile was another brick in the gallows I was building for them. The bouquet was where I hid the sharpest edge of my plan. At the florist, I asked for a wider handle, wrapped tight in ribbon. She thought it was for comfort. In reality, it was so I could slide in a second envelope, pressed against my palm, hidden in plain sight. While Sloane would hand me hers at the altar, believing it was her final blow, mine would already be waiting. The real dagger, the truth that would strip them bare. And with each layer of planning came the risk of exposure. I lived in constant tension. What if the AV tech peeked at the files? What if Logan noticed the empty ink cartridges, or Sloane caught my too calm expression? What if one wrong move collapsed it all before the big reveal? But fear became my weapon. Fear forced me to stay sharp, to rehearse. In front of the mirror, I practiced the words I would say when the silence fell. Not vows, but sentences that would cut deeper than any blade. I trained my voice to stay calm, to tremble just enough to sound human, but never weak. I practiced silence, too, because silence is what unnerves people most. By the third rehearsal, I didn't look like a bride anymore. I looked like an executioner. 2 nights before the wedding, Sloane insisted on a girls' night. She poured too much wine, leaned too close, and whispered, "You don't know what you do without me." I smiled, glass against my lips, and whispered back, "Neither do I." She thought it was gratitude. I knew it was prophecy. When she left, I pulled out the wedding binder. Between seating charts and linen swatches was the sentence I'd written weeks before. "This day won't unite us. It will end them." I read it once, twice, 3 times. And for the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt no grief. No nausea. Only clarity. The evidence was in order. The projector was ready. The bouquet was prepared. The prenup clause sat like a hidden trap. The lines were rehearsed. The stage was set. And as I slid the binder back into place and looked at the dress hanging in its pristine bag, I whispered into the still air, "It's ready." Not a wedding. Not anymore. A reckoning. And in 48 hours, the curtain would rise. The desert sun was blinding that afternoon, hot enough to make the white chairs gleam like bone. I remember standing at the end of the aisle, bouquet in hand, veil brushing my shoulders, and thinking, this is it. This is the stage I built for them. The guests rose as the quartet began to play. All eyes on me. To them, I was a bride about to marry the man of my dreams. To me, I was a predator walking into the final act. Sloane stood at the altar, glowing in blush silk, smile wide and sweet. She was radiant, yes, but there was something underneath, a glitter in her eyes that only I could see, triumph. She thought this was her coronation. And Logan, perfect tuxedo, dimpled smile. He looked like the picture every magazine would put on its cover. No one else noticed the faint twitch in his hand, the way his eyes darted to Sloane for just a beat too long. I did. I always did. The officiant cleared his throat. "We are gathered here today." That was Sloane's cue. She stepped forward gracefully, as if it were rehearsed, and pressed the ivory envelope into my palm. She leaned close, whispering just for me, "Try not to cry, Delaney. You'll ruin your makeup." Her smirk was sharp, slicing through her fake sympathy. I didn't flinch. I slid the envelope under my bouquet, right next to the one I had hidden. 2 envelopes. 2 futures. Only one would survive. The officiant began again, but my voice cut through before he could finish his sentence. "Before we begin," I said, steady, calm, carrying in the air, "I have something to share." A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. Guests leaned forward, smiles fading. Logan's hand twitched against mine. "Delaney," he whispered, his voice tight. "What are you doing?" I met his eyes and smiled. "Telling the truth." Gasps. Murmurs. The officiant blinked in alarm, unsure what to do. I turned to the guests, my voice ringing clear. "Some of you came here to witness a marriage, but you deserve to see the reality before I take a vow that was never meant to be honored." Logan's grip tightened. "Delaney, stop this." "Stop what?" I said, loud enough for everyone. "Stop exposing you? Stop showing them what you've been doing with my maid of honor for months?" The courtyard erupted in shocked whispers. Someone dropped a program. A child cried. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. Logan's face drained of color. "That's insane," he hissed. "You're paranoid. You don't know what you're saying." I raised the envelope Sloane had given me. Paranoid? I tore it open, letting the papers flutter free, photographs catching the light. Gasps broke into full-throated disbelief as they drifted into guests' laps. "Does this look paranoid to you?" A murmur rippled through the crowd as hands picked up pages. Eyes widened. A grandmother clutched her pearls. One of Logan's co-workers muttered, "Holy hell." Sloane stepped forward, her mask cracking. "Delaney, you don't understand." I laughed, sharp as glass. "No, Sloane, I understand perfectly. You thought this envelope would destroy me. You thought I'd fall apart right here in front of everyone, but you miscalculated." Her lips trembled. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I snapped. "By sleeping with the man I was going to marry?" The words were a whip, and the crowd recoiled. People shifted uncomfortably, some staring at the floor, others glaring openly at Logan and Sloane. Logan tried to seize control, his voice rising. "Listen to me. These are fake. She's making this up. I love you, Delaney. Don't throw this away." I smiled coldly. "Oh, Logan, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm handing it back to you." I lifted my bouquet, pulled free the second envelope, and held it high. "This is mine. My proof." Rowan, the AV tech, saw the signal. Lights dimmed, the projector flickered to life. And then the truth bled across the screen. First the texts, "She's so blind," then the replies, "She's lucky she even has me." The audience gasped, some shouted. My father stood, fury written in every line of his face. My mother sobbed quietly, shaking her head. But it wasn't just words. The next slide was a photograph. Logan and Sloane, tangled in hotel sheets, his arm draped across her bare shoulder. Her face tilted toward the camera, smiling. The silence was deafening. Logan lunged forward. "Turn it off! This is a lie!" I stepped back, voice cutting through his. "Lie? These were pulled directly from your cloud, Logan. And here's the best part. Every hotel receipt, every transfer, every dollar you spent on her, all charged to your corporate card." Gasps turned into laughter. Ugly, pitying laughter. Logan's boss stood abruptly, face purple. "On company funds?" he barked. "You idiot!" Logan froze, stammering. "No, wait, I can explain." But there was no explaining left. The screen shifted again, showing Sloane's messages. "We'll humiliate her. She'll never see it coming." The crowd groaned, disgusted. Her own sister, seated near the front, buried her face in her hands. Sloane broke then, reaching for me, her voice frantic. "Delaney, please, you don't understand. He manipulated me." I pulled away, ice in my veins. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Logan dropped his mask entirely, his voice breaking into a snarl. "You stupid, vindictive bitch. You set me up." I tilted my head. "No, Logan. You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone saw it." The projector clicked off. Silence swallowed the courtyard. I turned to the officiant. "There will be no vows today. There will be no marriage. Only truth." Gasps, whispers, the rustle of people standing. Logan's family avoided his eyes. His mother sobbed quietly into her hands. His father shook his head in disgust. I straightened, my voice clear. "You two thought today would crown you. Instead, it buries you." I handed the officiant the prenup folder, my lawyer's clause marked in red. "Consider this annulled before it even began. Legally, he gets nothing. Not a cent, not a name, nothing." Logan's face collapsed. "What? You thought marriage meant access to my family's money? It meant nothing. You've already signed your own ruin." The crowd gasped again. One of his co-workers snorted, unable to hold back laughter. "Unbelievable. You're finished, Logan." Sloane's eyes darted wildly around the courtyard, searching for sympathy. But every face turned from her. Bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably, one of them muttering, "Disgusting." The humiliation was total, but I wasn't done. I stepped closer, voice low but carrying. "Do you want to know the worst part, Logan? The reason this will haunt you forever?" He glared, lips trembling. "What?" I leaned in, smiling for the first time that day. "I knew weeks ago. I planned every second of this. You didn't marry a blind woman. You married your executioner." His knees buckled. His shoulders sagged. Sloane covered her face, sobbing, and I turned, walking back down the aisle not as a bride, but as something sharper, stronger. Behind me, the wreckage of 2 lives lay in the Arizona sun, stripped bare before everyone who mattered. The final blow wasn't the photos. It wasn't the projector. It wasn't even the prenup. It was the silence. The silence of every guest turning their backs. The silence of their empire crumbling in real time. The silence that told them there would be no rebuilding. By the time I reached the doors, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. There was no way back for them. The courtyard emptied in fragments. Guests scattered like ash after a fire, whispering, clutching purses, dragging children by the hand. Some shook their heads. Some laughed in disbelief. No one looked at Logan. No one comforted Sloane. I walked back into the bridal suite, peeled the veil from my hair, and sat in silence. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't trembling. It felt like slipping into cold water, shocking, cleansing, absolute. Outside, the party that was meant to be a celebration became a wake. The catering team boxed untouched food. The string quartet packed their instruments without a word. Logan's boss stormed out, barking into his phone. I stayed where I was, bouquet on the table, the ivory envelope torn open like a corpse. I listened to the ruin echo through the walls and let it wash over me. The fallout came fast. Logan's company launched an investigation within days. Using a corporate card to fund an affair wasn't just immoral, it was theft. His accounts were frozen. His position was suspended, then stripped. The man who once prided himself on being the golden boy of finance was suddenly radioactive. No firm in Scottsdale would touch him. Sloane's collapse was quieter, but just as brutal. Her fiancé, who had been sitting in the second row with a smile full of pride, returned her ring the morning after. He didn't shout. He didn't weep. He just placed it on her dresser and walked out. Her job at the design firm dissolved under the weight of gossip. Clients pulled accounts. Colleagues ghosted her. She went from maid of honor to social pariah in a single weekend. I didn't lift a finger to make this happen. I didn't need to. Truth has a way of sharpening its own claws. Of course, they tried to reach me. Logan showed up at my door 3 nights later, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. He pounded his fists against the wood, voice cracking. "Delaney, please, just open the door. We can fix this." I stood on the other side, silent, listening to his desperation spill into the night. "You set me up," he shouted. "You ruined me. Don't you get it? You ruined yourself too." The words rang hollow. I hadn't lost a thing. My family rallied to me. Friends reached out, telling me I was brave, strong, brilliant. My reputation had sharpened into something unshakable. His was ash. Eventually his fists slowed. His voice broke. And then he was gone. Sloane sent texts, pages of apologies, half-truths, excuses. He manipulated me. I didn't mean to. Please forgive me. I didn't reply. Silence was louder than any response. Weeks passed. Scottsdale moved on, but whispers followed them everywhere. Logan spotted at dive bars, unshaven, begging old colleagues for a chance. Sloane seen in grocery stores, eyes hollow, cart half empty. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Watching them unravel was satisfaction enough. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor. It wasn't just their reputations that collapsed. It was their future. The prenup clause meant Logan couldn't touch my family's money. Worse, the annulment stripped him of claims to shared assets. Every dollar he'd wasted on Sloane became his personal debt. Creditors circled like vultures. Sloane, desperate, tried to land new clients. But Scottsdale is small. No one wanted the woman who betrayed her best friend on the biggest stage possible. Word spread faster than wildfire. She was toxic, untouchable. And then came the final twist. One afternoon, a plain envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Logan and Sloane, seated in a dingy diner, shoulders hunched, faces gaunt. The caption scrawled in pen across the bottom. Still together. I stared at it for a long time, the irony settling into my bones. After all that destruction, all that ruin, they had clung to each other like rats on a sinking ship. The very thing that destroyed them was now the only thing they had left. And that was the cruelest cut of all. Because I hadn't just taken their reputations, their jobs, their futures. I had chained them to each other. No love, no trust, no escape. Every morning they woke up beside the one who cost them everything, and every night they fell asleep beside the reminder of their downfall. That was their prison. A lifetime sentence with no bars. I folded the photograph, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into my wedding binder, right between the seating chart and the vows I never gave. Then I closed the book. Because the story was finished.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.